The purpose of Wealth Talk is to educate, inform, and hopefully entertain you on the subject of building your wealth. Wealth Builders recommends you should always take independent financial, tax, or legal advice before making any decisions around your finances.
Welcome to episode 112 of Wealth Talk. My name is Christian Rodwell, the Membership Director for Wealth Builders, and I'm joined today by our founder, Mr. Kevin Whelan. Hi, Kevin.
Hi, Chris. Good to be with you again, as always.
I know, and we're racing through the month of June, and of course, this is our big Academy launch month. So today we are revisiting and pulling out just an excerpt of our Academy launch webinar that we held at the start of the month on the 3rd of June, because we've had a lot of people saying that they missed it, and, you know, we're all busy. So we thought, well, let's leverage time, let's repurpose it and share some of that in today's episode. And we're only 7 days away from the launch offer finishing, which is the 30th of June. So we're currently running a £500 discount for anyone that would like to join us. And Kevin, we're just delighted at the new members that have been joining and, enjoying doing the induction calls over the last few weeks and seeing everyone, joining the community.
Well, look, I'm so delighted that the pace is picking up. We keep the Academy as renamed, but we're keeping it very accessible. We're building in incredible new content now, and we're on a mission, at least I am, to build a huge preferred partner list who outstanding people in their field, just bringing great value, discounts or bonuses exclusively for Wealth Builder clients and members. And, I'm going to push on that front. So I think the membership program now, it's a kind of fully formed, is now ready to just bolt on so many extra benefits. So now's the best time ever. 500 quid off, crumbs. It's not a bad deal.
No, it's not bad. And, the excerpt we've pulled out today is around about an hour long. So we're not going to say anything too much afterwards. And we'll just point people now to a Q&A session that we are doing on the 30th. So Wednesday, the 30th of June at 7:30 p.m, just to really answer any final questions that people might have. They're not sure, or perhaps to bring a partner along and actually just see us face to face and see that hopefully we're the real deal, Kevin, and we're here to help.
The real deal indeed. What time is that?
7:30 p.m.
Okay, perfect. I better be there then.
Better put it in your diary. Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's head on over to the replay of the Academy launch webinar.
Historically, I've focused much more on, giving guidance and mentorship to others. But what started me off, and which is really powerful, don't worry about the photographs, but just so you know where I'm from, is a little of my roots here. And I'm proud of that. So I grew up in Newcastle upon Tyne. That's the Tyne Bridge. I love those bridges. They're just such a beautiful mixture of art and science. And wealth is just the same thing, really. And we are going to teach you how to bridge a gap between where you are now and where you want to be. Anyway, my reason why was related to the oil rig. So my dad started life on the shipyards in Newcastle, building ships as a welder. He then created a business. We're very proud of that. He created a business which was kind of arranging when the oil rigs and the North Sea was burgeoning. He got a job there working as a contractor with BP, and then started getting other people who were welders and inspectors and all sorts of other things in that area to work for him as an agent. And he did very well until he died. And he died, unfortunately, at age 46. And the point about that is I set a personal milestone, because we were genetic peas in a pod for sure, to be completely financially independent by 45. And that's what I did. So I focused all of my time, energy on that. And my path was slow because I did it by trial and error. There were no, as Chris said before, it can be quite isolated. I didn't have anybody to talk to. I didn't have a guide or a mentor, and just started to mentor other people myself once I'd achieved independence. And now we know, since we've been teaching this, that instead of waiting about 15 years, which it took me, you can do it in 5 years. And now we can mentor people with the community and the help of Chris and the coaches. We can get people to be completely financially independent in 5 years. And most people never, ever make it. They can be working for 40 years and still not be financially independent. We know that's true from the macroeconomics. But I would say that, the lesson I've learned is somebody else can help you get there faster, safer, and more enjoyably. And that's our mission, to help people do that.
Yeah. There's a little bit of background about us, but why do you want to build wealth? Well, as we said earlier, Kevin and I are speaking to people every day, and we know some of the common reasons. More time to travel, to just enjoy yourself and, explore the world a little bit. Or perhaps it's to get out of the rat race and to be able to work on your own terms from wherever you choose. And there's Bronwyn actually, and John. And Bronwyn is one of our wealth coaches. And you may have heard Bronwyn talking on Wealth Talk just a week ago. So Bronwyn will be sharing a little bit later on. And, you can see in the background there the elephants, because for Bronwyn, freedom of location was one of her highest priorities. So maybe it's meaningful causes. Maybe you want to be financially independent so you don't have to worry and trade your time for money, because you have more meaningful things that you want to go out and do and help people. Or very often we hear it's to create a lasting legacy. So to really pass on the wisdom to the next generation and beyond. Maybe it's time with your family now, or maybe it's more freedom in later life. So one of those probably will resonate with you. And it all ties into the 7 freedoms, which we've talked about on a podcast. And it's content that we keep coming back to, Kevin, because we just keep hearing these same things time over time.
Yeah, and everybody's got a different one. That's their priority. Chris, you had a job and you had some of those things that a job gives you. But, I know your big passion was location, and you spent some time in Lisbon writing your book, Sack Your Boss. And, that was important to you. For me, it's always been control. I'm unemployable, frankly. And I meet many other people who are. And I can't be told what to do, don't like being told what to do. And I was a rubbish employee. But I'm pretty good at doing what I do by doing things on my terms. And everybody wants a combination of things, but one of those probably drives you more than anything else. And it'd be curious and interesting to see what our audience has to say.
Yeah, we'd love to hear which one of those 7 freedoms is most important to you. So on screen now, you should see a poll and you can select one option. So which is the most important to you? Okay, well, I guess no surprise, right? When we're talking about financial independence, that would be top, but time, second, and control. So I'd say they probably are the top 3 that we hear most often, Kevin.
Yes, and if you've got financial freedom, of course, and this is having multiple streams of recurring income flowing into your bank like a self-replenishing bank account, the money shows up so you don't have to show up. If you've got that financial freedom, then all of the other things will pretty much take care of themselves anyway.
The big question, what's been holding you back so far? And we know the things that probably are driving you, all of those freedoms that we just saw, but is lack of knowledge holding you back? Do you feel like you simply haven't got enough information to get going? Or the opposite of that, which is too much information or information overload, which is very common because there's so many conflicting opinions online. You just get bombarded with different ideas and it's difficult to know which way to turn sometimes. It can also be difficult to know who to trust. Again, lots of different opinions. And, perhaps you're almost analysis paralysis with too many choices that you do nothing. And another reason might be that you feel you simply haven't got enough starting capital to begin. Perhaps it's fear of making mistakes, or, as we mentioned earlier, you simply don't have a clear plan. I don't know if there's any points you want to pick up on those, Kevin.
Well, I think a combination of those, really. I think if people have made mistakes before, they definitely fear those and they don't want to look bad. And I think information overload probably we see overwhelm is probably the biggest reason why people get stuck. And the other thing is then dealing with opinions and not principles. At Wealth Builders, we teach principles. We don't give our opinion. We say, this will work. This is a principle. Follow principles, you will build wealth. Follow opinions, you go around in circles and end up just like a drifter.
Yeah. So we promised to show you the plan tonight, and we'll come on to that very shortly. And The Wealth Builders Academy is a structured process. It is a roadmap that we've created, and it's tried and tested, and it's built on the foundations of quality education, great support, and trusted connections. And we're proud to be impartial and holistic. And we'll share with you some more details if you're interested in learning more about the Academy at the end of the webinar tonight. So, Kevin, our declaration of financial independence, we've got member Graham Barnett there holding up his signed declaration. Mm-hmm. And here are the key points. And I know this was important to you. You put this together some time ago, and it's still a key part of our membership.
Absolutely. And interestingly enough, I'm playing golf next week with Graham, and we're having our mentor session on a golf course, so that's all good fun. But the whole idea behind creating a new declaration of independence and enshrining a set of values was because we wanted to build a community. We had in mind, at least I had in mind at the start, 50,000 people all sharing a common set of values, sharing a common language with a common objective. And these are embedded in those. So unimpeachable integrity, building long-term relationships, being willing to help people and be helped. In the same ways I described the Tyne Bridge, the bridge is a kind of a monument to, as I say, beauty and engineering all at the same time. We want to do the same thing with our wealth building. We want one hand extended ahead of us on the bridge, asking for help and having the humility to do that. And another hand extended behind us, being willing to offer that help. And what I've been so thrilled to see is how many of the successful members in our program have gone on to become coaches because they want to give back so genuinely, not because they need the money. They don't need the money. What they're doing is saying, hey, I want to help other people cross that bridge with skill and with care, and to ensure that people don't fall off and so on. And the big one for me, as you know, is the legacy. It's not just what you leave people that counts. It's what you leave within them. And I believe in sharing wisdom, building wisdom, and passing that wisdom on through the process, which isn't in this session today, but is in later sessions in our program called the Family Charter, which is to take these values and extend them to 150 years worth of planning, so that you're leaving wisdom for the next generation, so they can expand that self-replenishing bank account for the next generation and the generation after that. And we become the pioneers of today to leave the legacy for tomorrow. And that's a really important point to get across from a wealth builder's point of view.
And it really is a transformative process. And, we obsess about the transformation of our members. And you'll be hearing from one of our members, Richco, tonight, who has transformed from being an employee to building wealth, and now to being our community support manager as well. And we just love the connection that we have with our members. So, just a little bit of, review to back up some of the words that Kevin and I are saying. But, feel free to go to Trustpilot and search for Wealth Builders. Have a look and see what some of our members are writing and sharing about their own experiences. So let's get stuck in, and want to begin by just doing a really quick kind of self-wealth assessment, just for you to get clear on how big the gap is from where you are right now in terms of how much asset income are you generating each month to how much you need in order to be financially secure and then to be financially independent. And the way that we illustrate this is through the 5 levels of wealth. And Kevin, perhaps you could just give us a brief run through of these 5 levels so everyone understands the meaning.
So wealth is the process of ownership or control of assets that generate recurring income. You know it's recurring because you don't need to do much for the money to keep showing up, as I mentioned earlier on. So if you stopped work, if you stopped that one thing, whether it's in your business, whether it's in your self-employment or your profession as a doctor or a dentist or a lawyer, or you're in a job, if those things stopped, what level of recurring income would automatically flow? If it's enough to give you everything you need to meet your current expenses, lockdown expenses, let's say, the life in lockdown, you would be financially secure. If it's less than that, in other words, you've got less money that would naturally flow automatically coming into your bank account, less money than your expenses, you're financially insecure. And most people who join the Wealth Builder program start there, but not all. Financial independence is a level that says, this is the amount of money that once I think about it will give me the life that I would treasure, a life where I've got no compromises. Whatever I want to do in my life, now, okay, we're not traveling as much as we were before, but nonetheless, when you get back to that normality, what would be your lifestyle? What would you be doing? And what would that level of income be? And for the most part, Chris, in our community, security is around 4,000 to 5,000 and independence is around 10,000. But everybody's number is different and we don't judge that. We don't value that. Abundance is when you have so much money flowing into your life, you're not even spending it. You're simply accumulating more and more and more. And that means, and that's usually what happens once you reach independence, it's an automatic process because you keep generating results from the activities that you've done. Then it gives you more time for thinking about other things, thinking about causes, creating more value in the world beyond what you're doing personally. And the legacy is the family charter. It's the idea of creating that long-term legacy, and so much money flowing into your family life. And we encourage everybody to create a family wealth business, and everybody creates that and creates a name for the legacy they want to leave. And once they name that, then that's the longer term plan. But we don't get too focused on that. We set the name at the beginning and we focus on the charter later on. But either way, they're the 5 different levels that we've created, and they're benchmarks against which you can assess where you are today.
Yeah, so you probably can have a rough idea in your mind where you are today in terms of those levels. And here's a big number, Kevin, but what does this have significance against? Well,
anecdotally, because there are no records, but certainly all the main protagonists in the world of wealth. And by the way, just one small point, I believe we are the only holistic and impartial guide to wealth in the UK. I don't believe anybody is doing things in the same way as we are. But anyway, 95% of the population will never make it to financial independence. They will never reach that level. And they don't do so for all the reasons you mentioned: a lack of plan, lack of trust, overwhelm, fear, getting stuck in the trap of the illusion of the one single income source supporting them, because they get caught up in the need to have that income. And then in the end, that income stream always dries up. And when it dries up, they will often realize the devastation of the drop in income that they will have. And more at the top end of the income levels, actually, the more you earn, the weaker the long-term future will be, because most people who've got high incomes generate higher levels of expenses through mortgages and other things. They like the finer things in life. And then when that income stops, the gap is enormous. And that's a tragedy.
So why would you want to get out of the 95%? Well, these reasons here that I think we've emphasized partly already: not to be dependent on just earned income, and not to have to work until later years when you are left with very little time to enjoy life, and just really not being in control. Being in a job, never really knowing if that job will still be there tomorrow. And it's definitely more risky, and of course leads to more financial concern.
Those concerns never go away, because almost everybody who's relying on a single source of income, because they're time poor, rely on a single source of income for their long-term wealth, which tends to be the stock market. And that's volatile and likely to get increasingly so, as we've seen. And we measure these things as economists. We measure the volatility of the stock market. It's getting more and more and more volatile, which means greater insecurity. And when you're old, the last thing you want is the stock market devastation taking away large portions of your income that you're simply too old to get back. And this is why most people are working in their 70s now, because they just haven't managed to build up multiple streams. They only have one.
So the question in your head is probably, okay, well, how do I become part of this 5%? So we've promised you tonight that will show you how you can create a clear plan within 60 days to build predictable recurring income from assets. And I've highlighted that part of it, predictable recurring income from assets. So let's focus on exactly what this means. So Kevin, I'll invite you to just share the difference between earned income versus asset income if anybody is not clear on that.
Yeah, sure. Work income or earned income is time-traded income. Easy to measure because, in simple terms, you can divide your salary by 2, and that's roughly what your earned income per hour is. So if you're on 50,000, you're on 25 quid an hour. 100,000 is 50 quid an hour. A million is 500 quid an hour. Essentially, you're always trading time for money, and that's a difficult illusion to break free from. Whereas assets, and there are only 7 assets, as we'll discover in a moment, but 7 assets that can put money into your life, puts money into your life while you're asleep. You don't have to be doing the work continually for the money to flow. The money shows up, you don't have to show up. And it is permanent. It's not temporary like earned income. Earned income is always temporary. Asset income, if it's done well, is always permanent, which means you can leave a fantastic legacy as well.
And there are only 7 assets, and we refer to them as pillars. So the 7 pillars of wealth. And you can see here, there are 3 assets or pillars on the right-hand side there, which are home capacity, pensions, and investments. And on the left-hand side, you have property portfolio, business, intellectual property, and joint ventures. So can you spot the difference? So pop in the chat if you can see a difference between the left-hand side and the right-hand side, and we'll see what everyone.
While people are doing that, let me describe a little of what they mean. So for the most part, you can see why we call them pillars, because the logo of Wealth Builders is a foundation, a roof, and 7 sturdy pillars in the middle. And by the way, I will continue to offer my challenge every time I'm on a webinar that I believe there are only 7 assets. They're not 8. So if you can find an 8th asset, I'll be delighted to send you a very nice case of champagne to acknowledge that, and then I'll build that in to further IP. But most people who are in the 95% have a home they live in, usually not generate any income, have pensions which they can't touch till they're 55 or later, and investments which are invariably also on the stock market. So 1 source of income, 1 source of retirement plan, 1 home that they live in. Those who build wealth more permanently will tend to do so with the property, getting multiple streams of income from rental, from business, from recurring income and recurring profits, from intellectual property, from books, courses, memberships, and joint ventures, becoming a bank and earning interest from there, almost like a bank does now, just getting a long-term stream of income flow from the use of their money. And there's a fundamental difference between both sides. It'd be interesting to see what people are spotting, Chris. So what are you seeing there?
Yeah, okay. So Emily's saying the right is mainly the 95%.
She's right.
Yeah. Dave Brown is saying the right are future incomes, the left are regular incomes.
Yeah. Not necessarily the case, but I'd take the point.
Tom is saying left are recurring. And, interesting one from Liz here. The right-hand side is more traditional.
Sure.
So we do call those the traditional pillars on the right-hand side and entrepreneurial pillars on the left-hand side.
Yeah. There are some other fundamental differences, of course. One of those is your ability to add value on the right is almost always very little. Yes, you can add value to your home, but if you're living in it and not creating a revenue stream from it, you're not adding much value at all. You can't add value to the stock market in pensions, and you can't add value to investments either. So you're kind of limited to what a marketplace delivers. On the other side, you've got much more ability and power because you learn how to create value. So on the left-hand side, you become a value creator. On the right-hand side, you're just reacting to the value you get. On the left-hand side, you're building steady streams of recurring income on the right-hand side, you're normally accumulating till a later date. You downsize when you're 70. You get your pension when you're 60. You build up your investments until you're later on, and then you try and turn those incomes, those cash flows into income. So you're almost always just simply accumulating. And when you accumulate, you're at the mercy of the market. Whereas if you've got multiple streams of recurring income coming in from many places, you're not dependent on any one market. And of course, you can leverage on the left-hand side. And many of our smarter wealth builder students will take money that they've got on the right-hand side, and they will cross it over that bridge, there's that word bridge again, to the left-hand side, and use money locked in the capacity in their home, locked in their pensions, and locked in their investments. And they'll turn it into instant seed capital, like seeds growing, to build other assets that are more permanently generating income.
Yeah, so hopefully now we've cleared up exactly what we mean by earned income versus asset income and recurring income, these terms that may be new to you. And why don't we hear from one of our members who actually has implemented some of these pillars? And Richiko, if you are on the webinar, it would be really wonderful for you to just share a few words of these points that we can see on screen here. You know, what was driving you, what was important, and then what was the reason for obviously joining Wealth Builders?
Thank you, Chris. Hello, everyone. Yes, I joined Wealth Builders 2 years ago, back in May 2000. The founder members of the program. I was in a very busy job at the time in the airline industry, long hours, lots of travel, which it sounds very glamorous, but it wasn't. So I was really looking for a way to escape the rat race, and I didn't really know how or where to start. So I came across Wealth Builders, and I found what I was looking for with teaching the principles of building wealth. I'd started with a small e-commerce business at the time, selling products on Amazon. And then when I joined Wealth Builders, I also started in property. I did property education, and that became my secondary pillar to focus on building my recurring income, which at the moment is roughly at about £2,700 a month. It's still at financial security, but creeping up towards the financial security level. And it's completely changed my life. I have quit my airline industry job, and I joined Wealth Builders at the start of this year as the community support manager, supporting Chris and Kevin and all of our members on this journey.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you for sharing, Richiko. And you absolutely have embodied the principles, and we'll find out a bit more about exactly how that process works in just a short minute. So thanks a lot, Richiko.
Thank you, Chris.
So our promise, once again, tonight is to show you how to create a clear plan within 60 days to build predictable recurring income from assets. So we understand what recurring income from assets are. We know there are only 7 assets. So how can you create a clear plan? Well, here is the roadmap or the blueprint, however you wish to refer to it. But this is what we lovingly refer to as the recurring revenue roadmap. And it really is the only way that you can move from a place of financial insecurity, which is point A, through to security and achieve financial independence, which is point B. And the journey here is a journey that doesn't happen overnight. It can take, on average, 3 to 7 years. So we say a 5-year journey for most people, Kevin, if they're committed, if they have a clear plan and they have good support.
Yeah, 5 years is about the average. The commitment is normally a couple of hours a week. So if you can do 30 minutes a day, you're really doing well. A couple of hours a week to build your wealth, and you starting with some sort of financial leverage, which you'll get to, Chris, I'm sure, in step 5 to talk about. So if you've got something you can bring or time to bring, and you've got a commitment. So commitment is the start. It's not knowing what you need to do at the start. It's just making a commitment. You want to be financially independent. Once you make the commitment, everything else will flow towards that. But you can't know everything before you make the commitment. It's counterintuitive, I know, but you have to make the commitment first. Otherwise, You'll constantly be seeking the best, the magic, and that will get you back to being under the boardwalk, which is a Drifter song, if I remember, Chris. So, or Saturday night at the movies, which is another one, isn't it? So just go to the movies if you want to do that to get entertained. This is not meant to be entertaining. It's meant to build wealth. 5 years to build wealth is a much better place to be than 40 years to have insecurity for the rest of your life. I'm not sure, but I think I would do it this way. Now I could do it in 5. We can teach it in 5 when it took me 3 times as long, because we've learned all the lessons. We've made all the intellectual shortcuts. We've made all the connections. We've got everything completely nailed. So anyone could follow this, irrespective of where you're starting in age, irrespective of where you're starting with money right now, because there are plans where you can build wealth without having to have money to do it. You just have to give yourself more time.
Yeah. And Kevin, this is a process you've been teaching for many, many years, but more on a one-to-one basis in a mentoring capacity. And all the IP was inside your head. And I've had the privilege of being able to kind of pull that out. And together we've created the roadmap here, which has just made it a lot more simple for everyone to follow. It's really made it accessible. And, we can break it down in a moment, but, it's based on your own experiences. So it's tried and tested.
Yeah, and principles, not opinions, as I said earlier on. These things work. It's not an opinion that works. It's not you should do crypto or gold, or it's not about that. It's about principles of generating recurring income.
Yeah. So let's break this down for you. You can see there are 3 stages. So starting with stage 1 at the bottom is all about building confidence, because we know that for many people, I know myself included, on my journey, invested lots of money, lots of time, lots of energy, trying many different things in the beginning. And, some of those things don't work out, and it can be a little bit demotivating. And you look back and you think, I'm not really making progress. And, you're trying, you're working hard, you're still not seeing things happen. So we know that building confidence is important and getting that foundation in place, and it can knock your mindset. But getting really clear on your reason why is a huge catalyst, as Kevin shared earlier. And of course, we use many different tools. Wealth Dynamics is a tool that helps you understand which of the 8 entrepreneurial profiles you are. So that all is wrapped up into step 1, which is mindset there. So let's have a look at stage 1, which is building confidence. So once we've covered off, really getting clear on you as an individual, what are your strengths and weaknesses? What are your interests? What's driving you and driving you to want to build wealth? Then we move into step 2, which is just really doing a self-assessment, looking at your life right now, looking at the money that's coming in and going out. And we have a process in step 2, which is called debits process. And perhaps we'll share a little bit more. We have an example in a minute of one of our members who made a huge saving just with a few hours work by following that exercise. And it's all about step 2 there, getting really clear on those 5 levels. So really understanding how much you actually need to be financially secure and how much to be financially independent. And when you actually break it down, sometimes it's not as much as you think. And step 3 there is a critical step. It's what we call the roof, and it's the protection of you and your assets. And it includes really just taking stock of, do you have wills, power of attorneys? Do you understand trusts and home ownership? A few different aspects there, which are things that often, Kevin, people have got on the to-do list, but because it's not one of the most exciting tasks, it kind of gets pushed along. And in some cases, it never gets done.
No, and this is true. When I relayed the story of my dad, who died at 46, unfortunately, he's a business owner, died without a will, died without a power of attorney, died without a business plan, died without a shareholder agreement. So everything went when he went. So you can't leave it till you're wealthy. You build and protect your leaky roof as you go. And while it's never the most pleasant thing to deal with these, it's really important. And all of our members say what peace of mind they get when they do it. And they all do it. It's just something that we like to make sure that you get your roof solid. And then when you grow, you build a stronger and stronger roof, because you're building a stronger and stronger structure for yourself. So just important to do it, but it's all done within 30 days. So it doesn't take too long.
Absolutely. So, once you have your foundation in place, then as Kevin said, that can take, as little as 30 days, really. And let's just look at one of the examples there from Adnan. So one of the exercises in step 2, we said debits, Kevin, which is really just kind of looking into, your life, uncovering hidden money that you didn't realize was there. And Adnan's story was not uncommon, actually, because he's not the only member who has found a significant amount of lost pension money. And you can see there, he found £50,000 simply by going through the exercise. And he's now reinvested that into his property to generate more recurring income. So a great result there, Kevin.
Yeah, the biggest we found is 100,000 that somebody didn't know they had, and the largest that somebody sent me a very fine case of red wine because I pressed them and said, "Come on, let's do it now. Let's sit and do it. Let's do it. Come on, let's do it because you're putting off. You're drifting on this one." And he did. It was £255,000. So it's crazy that people forget things they've left behind, particularly pensions, because they're so dull and boring generally. They're a bit grey, aren't they? But by securing that money, and while we won't be talking much about SSAS this evening, it's a very powerful tool to take control of that money and walk it across the bridge and use that money to build recurring income instead of just leaving it languishing on the merry-go-round of the stock market. And that's very, very important strategy that almost all of our successful clients and members have gone through.
Yeah, so Luke joined at the same time as Adnan and again went through the process of debits and saved over £3,700. And, that took, I think, about 3 hours for Luke just to go through everything that was already kind of coming out of his bank accounts and just reassess what he did need, what he didn't need. And it's something we all kind of know that we need to do. And sometimes we do it, sometimes we don't. But I think that's the thing about having a structure is we make sure, you get things done, you get your roof done, you do your debits and you check it every year. And you can see Luke then has used that to help build multiple streams in the property pillar, joint ventures as well. And he's now generating a recurring income of £3,000 per month. And earlier this year also quit his job. So, we just love hearing Luke's story. He's just been a dynamo since he joined.
And the other thing about debits, which is those people who just like to know what they are, we won't go into detail, but it's debt, education, bills, insurance, tax, and support costs. That's the hidden costs that you not paying attention to, like the fees to IFAs or the fees to financial services or whatever. And almost everybody finds money. The average is around about £1,000, but it's money that you find, and when you find it, you plant it. They become seeds for building wealth, wherever you want to do that. And more often than not, we can show people how to get education at a fraction of the price they'd pay elsewhere because we've got such a strong, thriving community and trusted partners that we work with who give our members, significant discounts. And some ways, which we won't go into now, you can actually be paid to get education when you know what you're doing. So you're turning your money into a source of income and a source of learning all at the same time, which is a sort of a double ROI, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. So you can see just 2 examples there. It's very possible within the first 30 days to uncover significant amounts of money that you simply didn't realize were there. So that moves into the second stage of the roadmap, which is stage 2, all about building knowledge. So once you are, have that foundation in place, it's given you that peace of mind, those important things are done, then it's time to really start learning about the 7 pillars. And that's step 4. So obviously going into detail around each of those, but then really deciding which ones probably are the most suitable for you, because you certainly won't be focusing on all 7 at the same time. And in fact, we would like you to focus on just 1 or 2, and we can help you eliminate the ones that are probably not right for you now, and they may well come into play later on. And once you understand about the 7 pillars, then the key to building wealth is step 5, and that is leverage. And there's 5 types of leverage that we teach, and that's financial leverage. Obviously, looking at your life, where have you got financial leverage? Could be in your home or your pension or investments or your properties. And then intellectual leverage is really what you know, but also what you're interested in. So looking at your experiences. And relationship leverage is who you know. So have you got a network of like-minded people around you, and are you part of a community that you can learn from? And systems is another form of leverage. And then the most important at the bottom there, Kevin, is leveraging your time. So making sure that that small amount of time that you are focusing on wealth building is spent on the right activities.
Yeah, and you must power through the time, whether it's, your half an hour a day or it's 2 hours a week, whatever you've got. You must leverage that time. And that's why we talk about different ways you can box your time, you can leverage your time, you can accelerate your time, you can work with other people to give you more time, because other people will bring leverage to your time. But you have to give it some time. If you have zero time, you will build zero wealth. You must give it time. So we need to establish what is the amount of time you've got, combined with the other forms of leverage, combined then with the pillar that most interests you. Then we matrix that out and help you choose the most appropriate pillar and strategy that fits your unique leverage, which means you don't get overwhelmed, you don't get bombarded, you focus on one thing or two, depending, but usually one or two, to get you through to the next level, which is when you're aiming towards security.
Yeah, so let's hear from one of our other members. And Ivor Bennett is a member who joined us last year, actually, just about a year ago now. And Ivor has been on fire since day one, pretty much. Are you there, Ivor?
Hi, all. Hi, Kevin. Hi, Christian.
Hello, Ivor. So thanks very much for joining and just sharing a few words. And I've put some points there just, to emphasize that I remember you telling me on the Wealth Talk interview that, it was... you had a bit of a pension shock. You were speaking to someone at work, right? And you suddenly thought, wow, if I just continue on this path, it's not going to take me to where I want to get to. So maybe you can share that point with everyone.
Yeah. It's a really good point. And I think it's, you get kind of life-changing events as you go through. And one of the points I had there was my old boss. He worked, he had like 30 years worth of pension, 2 really good pension pots. And I just remember him getting ready to retire. I was sitting at the desk. He looked over and he said, I've just got my pension figure. And it was just like a smack in the face. And I just realised that I was just a million miles away off from where I needed to be. And I just continued to, I guess, sleepwalking into retirement and, look at the pension, not really attached to it. But I really thought that was one of a trigger of events that I really wanted to really kick-started me into the wealth building, I think.
Yeah. And then what prompted you to join Wealth Builders?
Well, I think I was overwhelmed. I'd spent, so I've only started wealth building at the beginning of lockdown, really. So start day one of lockdown, we got our first buy-to-let investment at auction. And I think that overwhelm and media and social media and everything that you can consume, everything can consume me. And I had a bit of a plan, but I didn't really know where I was heading. And what I really liked about what I found with listening to Wealth Talk, and I was able to connect with, I felt like I knew you and Kevin anyway from all the episodes that I'd binged on anyway. And I think when we had our conversation, it was more around, I was worried about the time. I said to I'm not sure I'm going to have enough time to do property as well as wealth building. And our conversation, you just said, well, this time next year, are you going to have any more time? And it was quite a clean-cut answer. But I was like, well, no, this is probably the best time I'm going to get. I wasn't, traveling into the office, so I'd made sure I was leveraging my time. And so that really just cemented that I've got a property strategy, and I overlaid that with wealth building. It just kind of all worked hand in hand, and I've not regretted it since day one of joining.
Yeah, and now generating income streams from different sources, so multiple streams now, and always love your posts in the Facebook group, and you're always there every month on the Q&A sharing your updates, which we look forward to. And, that aspect of community, Ivor, would you say that that's been important for you? It's helped you progress a bit faster?
Yeah, I think very much so. So I guess, so my wife, she's there supporting me, but she's not really involved in the whole wealth building aspect. So I think without the community, it would have actually been really lonely. I guess the you get a bit better accountability from posting and the groups there. And I think everyone goes through ups and downs when you're going through this journey. And I think, you see other people, hearing the other stories. And that really, for me, is the catalyst. If you're ever feeling down, you see someone that posts that, they've just given up their job or they've just hit their financial target, and it's really achievable. And I think that the community gives you the mindset, because you've got to get over the mindset. And once you have got the plan and the mindset, it's really just about implementation. But I think that's what the community gives you. It really just gives you that sense of well-being, and that you're not on your own, and you can answer a question at any point in time, and you do start to connect and form some really strong relationships as well.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much for sharing, Ivor.
Thanks.
Okay, so we've looked at stage 2 there, and stage 2 is all about building knowledge. We know that can only come following the confidence, which is stage 1. So how do you now create a plan within 60 days to build predictable recurring income from assets? Well, at the end of stage 2 is when we create your one-page wealth plan. And this is a new aspect of the Academy, is a new one-page wealth plan here to help you stay super focused on your path. And this will be different for every person, but it's based on the principles, the fundamentals that we've already shown you. And this is really the end of the first 60 days is when you'll have your clear plan of which will be your primary, your secondary pillar, your strategy, where's your leverage coming from, what are your financial targets, really get clear on how big the gap is from where you are to where you want to get to, what's driving you. So all of these things wrapped up together, of which you'll have a really good understanding of by this point. And we'll have done your induction call as well, which is a process where you and I would spend an hour on Zoom creating what we call the wealth map. It's a mind map. It's a really visual, creative process where it's a snapshot of where you are today. And I hand that wealth map over to you, and that becomes the foundation then for your one-page wealth plan. And at the end of stage 2 is when we then assign you with one of our wealth coaches. So every month you have a one-to-one coaching call in the Academy with your coach, and our coaches are on screen here. So one of our coaches is actually beaming in live and direct. And Bronwyn, are you there?
I am indeed. Hello, everybody.
Hello, Bronwyn. So I enjoyed our interview on Wealth Talk a week ago. I'm sure a few people on the webinar tonight have heard that. And obviously, we were talking about the importance of the freedom of location. So it'd be really nice, Bronwyn, if you would share a few words of, how you first connected with Wealth Builders, and obviously what was your journey that led you to that, and what's happened since then.
Sure, I'll be as brief as possible because I know we've got so much to share. But my introduction to Wealth Builders was meeting Kevin when I first started wanting to learn about property. And this network, once you start getting an education, is a very, very small network. And meeting Kevin opened my eyes up to much more broad opportunities of creating wealth, not just property. So my background's banking. I spent 21 years in Lloyds Bank. And whilst the pension didn't look too good, well, actually it looked all right, to be fair, but I didn't want to carry on working until 67 years of age, which is when I was told I could draw down my pension. And I thought, no, I've got way too many things I want to be doing in my life. And how can I create a recurring income to allow me to have the freedom to do other things? And that started with property. It started, an education around, is it possible to use property to create additional income? And then really, it's about understanding the other pillars. And, having been a banker for that long, I thought, well, I know quite a lot about finance, but clearly I didn't. And I think a lot of people don't. We don't teach this stuff through schools. We don't teach it and we don't share it enough. And that's why I'm passionate to share my knowledge of what I've learned, and hope to help other people get to some sort of independence much quicker than I did. So that's why I'm a coach, and I've got a lot to share. I've got lots of different pillars that I now, get some good returns from, but also I'm doing what I love, and I'm in Botswana at the moment. I've been volunteering out in Namibia with my husband for 5 months. And then we're back on the road having some fun, discovering new places in Africa. So whilst I do that, I'm able to continue to get a regular income from my property portfolio and also continue to coach and help other people, just because technology enables that. So I talked a lot about that on Wealth Talk, that was literally launched last week, wasn't it? That particular podcast. So if anyone wants to hear more, listen to that podcast and connect with me. But that's where I am. Yes.
Yeah,
it's great to be here.
Rebecca has just posted awesome. So enjoying that.
Awesome indeed.
And actually our podcast episode that came out yesterday was a member spotlight with Adrian Taylor, and you've been Adrian's coach. And maybe we talked about the transformational process, really, that we see people move through that roadmap. What have you noticed as being a coach, Bronwyn, from, when you first have that first induction call with someone to where they are in kind of 6-12 months later?
Yeah, so I'm Adrian's coach. I'm also Ivor's coach. So Ivor, who just commented, I'm also his coach. So that's a coincidence on today's webinar. So coaching, very, very important to have some sort of accountability, to have a regular monthly look into, did I do what I said I was going to do last month? But also, there might be some issues that have arisen, and you want the ability to talk to somebody in confidence, to talk to somebody that has got some experience who can perhaps give you some ideas. And when people start out, they're not really sure what does coaching do. And what I find is that with different people, I have a different approach. And, I think depending on what people really need, I will adapt to that. But also knowing the process and knowing the steps, it's a fantastic process. But sometimes it's the mindset that you need to get back into gear. There are ups and downs with this. It's not easy. It takes time. And when you're in that down bit, you need somebody to just lift you up and go, okay, it's okay. You can continue. But equally, when you're at a good point and you've done really, really well, you want somebody to give you that feedback and to share some of that good stuff with. So it varies hugely, but I think coaching is so important that you have that on a regular basis and you commit to that, because certainly from my experience when I was learning, knowing that I had a coaching call coming up just gave me that little lift of, I better make sure I've done what I said I was going to do, but also prepare for the next session around, well, where are my issues? Where can I get value from that call so that I'm not wasting the time? But yes, it certainly is essential, I would suggest, if you want to achieve your goals, to commit to some sort of regular engagement and coaching.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for taking some time out, Bronwyn, from your adventure, and we really appreciate it. And obviously, thank you for all the work that you do as one of our wealth coaches.
No problem. Thanks.
And Kevin, just maybe you have a word just on some of our other coaches on screen here. Definitely Chris is another client, similar journey to Bronwyn there.
Yes, so Chris was engaged with me as a guide on a similar journey to Bronwyn, really, with the banker turned bank. A really great coach, and anybody meets him knows the integrity of the guy and how he's so keen to help. Carol, who's got brilliant property experience as a mentor with another coaching organization in property. Manish, who's outstanding in the field of investments as an city analyst and city broker. We've got Ian, who's got his own story, recently came out as well on the podcast, born out of a similar experience to me, actually, a tragic death, but not of his father, but of another family member. And of course, John, who's our most recent addition, who at the beginning, didn't think he would want to be a coach, but he's just enjoyed the journey. He's embraced it so full on. John plays everything full on. And when he managed to achieve his own successes, he thought, I want to help people and I want to give back. And so again, none of these people are doing it for money. They're not time trading. They're not replacing something with a job. They don't have a job. They do it because they want to do it, because they want to add value. And that can only really come from a place of complete confidence and where they are financially. And, we're thrilled John has gone through the process. Richiko gone through the process. Bronwyn has gone through the process. And Chris Henry have gone through the process. Others of other coaches didn't go through our process, but have gone through the process with others. So they're great coaches, and we're always looking to build more as our membership grows. And I'm sure some of our successful members today will become the coaches of tomorrow, and probably more on that in coming episodes, I think.
So I hope you're now beginning to see how this plan does work, and hearing from some of our members and our coaches as to exactly how it works. And we've looked at stage 1, which was build confidence. We've looked at stage 2, which is then a good understanding of the assets and pillars. And the final stage now, once you have your plan in place, is to take action. So stage 3 is all about building assets. This is where you will work with your coach on your specific plan every single month, every 30 days. And your coach will help you to turn the wheel of wealth, which is step 7 there, Kevin. And I will pause because this is such a critical step. And maybe you can just say why it's so important.
Yes, it's really critical because everybody who has got a different wealth dynamic will try and do something to accelerate the process. Everybody's hungry for success, but there's a process, and we call it following the wheel. And while we don't have, the time to show you every intricacy of it, there are 5 distinct steps in the wheel. The first is education, knowing enough about the asset and being clear you do know enough. You're not guessing, you're not listening to opinions, you've got facts, you know what you're doing. The second is support, which is that impartial, holistic coaching community. Nobody's pressing you into doing one thing or another. There's no upsell. There's no, you need to go on another course. There's none of that taking place. The third is connections. That's bringing the education to life, seeing what other people are doing. So you can just see it and experience it and say, well, what do you actually do physically? And how do I feel about that? Do I see myself doing that? And in many cases, as you did, Chris, with one aspect of property, you went through the process and went, this isn't for me. And that's good, though. It's good, although it's frustrating because you don't get to achieve an outcome. The successful turn of the wheel, by the way, is either the flow of cash, i.e. a lump sum, or cash flow. It can be either. But nonetheless, the whole process is turning the wheel 360 degrees from, point at 12 o'clock all the way around again. The fourth stage, the most missed stage, is the stage of due diligence, which is, do you understand the risk? How will you mitigate the risk? Can you deal with the downside here? Have you documented the downside? Are you very clear about how you're dealing with that? And only then do you move forward in taking action. And when you take action, which is making sure you've done the whole thing properly, then it should click through to generate a flow of, let's say, traditionally and more often than not, cash flow. And then you measure that cash flow in a wealth chart that I'm sure Chris will give an insight into, where you're recording how your recurring income is growing. A bit like a thermometer, when people used to raise money on Blue Peter and stuff, you see the thermometer rising up. And that's what you're doing. You're measuring that and recording that. And many people get their kids to color it in as they're on the rise, and that's great. But we mustn't cheat the wheel. That's the whole concept. Some principles here. Don't cheat the wheel. Make sure you do it properly. That way you won't mistakes. You won't backslide. You won't end up losing confidence and getting to a place where you start off with ambition and then you lose money and go backwards, almost like snakes and ladders. We don't want you to do that. And people who follow and focus and don't try and do too many wheels at the same time and therefore half turn the wheels, you do it properly, it will work.
So there we have the roadmap, and we've walked through the 3 steps. And it's really as simple as this, Kevin, that it takes 60 days to create your plan, but it takes 60 months or 5 years to reach financial independence. And the key is to take that first step.
Yeah, and we want to emphasize that it can't be quick, because if it was quick, everybody would do it. There would be a magic bullet. There'd be a straight road. And although that looks a straight road ahead, as Bronwyn has alluded to and Ivor has alluded to, it's never straight. You're going to take some deviations, and that's part of life. It's actually part of an enjoyable journey, that you make mistakes and you go off, your coach gets you back on track, but you need to discover about yourself. So it usually will take about 5 years. So if you've got the patience, if you've got the commitment, if you've got the courage to trust in a process, because you won't know how to do it yet, but you have to trust. And if you trust and give yourself 60 months and you'll follow a process, you have the humility to do it, not try and think you know everything from day one. We're not about that. This is not for drifters. It's not for DIYers either, people who think they know everything on their own. It's better done in a community, with sharing, with integrity, with people who are there to help you, not to hold you back. We don't get a prize if you get to financial independence. We just get the satisfaction of knowing that you are one of the 5%, and we want 50,000 of you to make it. That's my personal ambition. Before I check out, Chris, before I go under the boardwalk, I want 50,000 people to be financially independent following this plan. And I hope some people tonight will like the sound of it and will put their trust in us.
Okay, hope you enjoyed that. Actually really enjoyed listening back to that as well, Kevin, and certainly hearing from Ivor, from Bronwyn, and from Richiko as well.
Yes, and always good to hear from people, and of course just check out our Trustpilot reviews. You know, the key values come through time and time again there. But look, we're accessible, as I said at the beginning, and we want to be personally accessible. So tune in to that Q&A session, ask any questions you've got, get your partner to ask any questions. Just, we'll tell it warts and all. We're not trying to, we know it's kind of like a 5-year plan, right? So we're not trying to rush people into a 5-minute decision. So just get your questions asked and answered. And if it's good for you, come and join us. If not, just join on the outside and just consume our free stuff and wait for the next one to come along. But 500 quid off, that's not a bad one, and a good reason to tune in, especially now as we reach, we're just turning the corner of the year. We're coming out of lockdown. Lots of opportunities will abound. So hopefully, Chris, we'll get a good attendance there, and we'll be delighted to answer any questions people have about what Wealth Builders do, what we stand for, and how we can help.
Definitely. Yeah. So do, bring your partner along. Make sure you join us next week on Wednesday, the 30th of June, 7:30 p.m. We're just having a really informal Zoom call, and just come and join us, ask questions and listen and learn and see if it's right for you. And Kevin, partners join free in the Academy. So there's no extra cost for partners. We really want to build a family wealth business. This is a plan, a legacy for the long term, as you say. So, it's important that everyone comes together.
I couldn't agree with you more.
All right, great. So thanks for listening today. As always, Kevin, we'll catch up same time, same place next week.
Until 30th of June, my friend. See ya.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget that we are constantly updating our resources inside the Wealth Builders membership site to help you create, build and protect your wealth. Head over to wealthbuilders.co.uk/membership right now for free access. That's wealthbuilders.co.uk/membership.